Next up on Small Town Big Deal, we meet two extraordinary ladies whose personal tragedies are helping educate the next generation about farm safety on Small Town Big Deal. Welcome to Small Town Big Deal. I've traveled across the country and firmly believe that the people in small towns are the hands that keep America strong. So join me, Rodney Miller, as I show you the great things these people do on Small Town Big Deal.
Headed west on I-80 outside of Des Moines, Iowa, lies the sleepy town of Earlham. This farming town is impacting the world, and we'll see just how.
Welcome to Small Town Big Deal. I'm Rodney Miller.
And I'm Jann Carl.
And we're going to tell you about a couple of stories today that are really going to touch your heart. I know they did mine.
First, we're going to start with a woman from this small town of Earlham who took her family's tragedy and turned it into something that is saving lives.
How many of you are from a farm? So a lot of you. And even if you're not from a farm, it's very important to be safe around animals. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
You're seeing the fruition of a labor of love. It's called Farm Safety for Just Kids, a nonprofit organization that uses volunteers to educate youth from rural communities about the hazards of living and working on a farm. From 1995 to 2000, nearly 700 children lost their lives to farming accidents.
Now we have a pretty safe farm here. All the animals are fenced off.
Today, the number of deaths are declining, but the work for Farm Safety for Just Kids goes on. We met up with the organization's executive director, Dave Schweitz.
So Dave, this organization's come a long way from very humble beginnings to what it is today.
We have 120 chapters in 30-some states who actually put on the safety programs. And I think last year we had almost 6,000 volunteers.
The whole darn straw house fell down. And right in the middle of the pile of straw was the first...
The mission of Farm Safety for Just Kids is critical because if one life can be saved through education, that's one less family that will suffer the pain that Marilyn Adams and her family did. I had a chance to spend some time with Marilyn and learn about the events of October 1986, the day that her son Keith was fatally injured in a farm accident. Take us back to that day. So what do you tell people when you tell them your story that they've never heard it?
The first thing we did wrong was to have Keith stay home to help his dad with the first full day of harvest. You know, it was his rite of passage, and we just, when his dad said, "Can Keith stay home from school and help me tomorrow?" I thought that was wonderful. You know, he was his dad's right-hand man.
What exactly was his job that day?
His dad would fill the gravity flow wagon with corn in the barnyard, and then it emptied into an auger and up into the grain bin. And so his job was to watch the wagon unload. When it was empty, he would climb up in the tractor and shut the power take-off off, and idle the tractor down and wait for his dad to come back. He climbed up on top of the wagon and for some reason got in that load of corn. Now, I don't know if he dropped something and was trying to retrieve it. Maybe his hat blew off, but he just didn't have the knowledge that if he actually got in that corn, it could suck him under. It's like quicksand.
Daryl comes back with the next load, and he doesn't see Keith.
He didn't see him, but he noticed that the wagon was still full. So he knew where to look. It just hit him, you know, and he came around to the side and could see Keith's feet blocking the doorway, blocking the corn from coming out. And it was just a little bit of a trickle of corn. And he had been pulled right down into the fetal position against that door that was open just far enough to unload in 20 minutes.
When did you get the call?
I was in a bookkeeping class in Des Moines, and I got the call just right away after it happened, and got to the hospital, and chaplain came out and said, "There, you know, Everybody's working on him. And then pretty soon, somebody brought Daryl, and he came in the room. And I was trying to tell him he's going to be okay. They said, all the staff is working on him. That means he's going to be okay. But he wasn't. He was on life support for 24 hours. And then at 2:30 in the morning, my mom was on one side of his bed and I was on the other, and he stopped trembling. And we knew that it was over.
I can't say I know how you feel. No one can.
No.
Unless they've lost a child. I would think that was the day that changed your life forever.
Oh, absolutely. You're not the same person.
How long did it take for you to say, I need to do something so it doesn't happen to somebody else's son or daughter?
It was about a year later that I started Farm Safety for Just Kids. And that was all inspired by my oldest daughter. She wanted to do a speech about Keith for FFA. She said, I need you to do some research about how did the wagon work? What happened? We could put the little person in and see what happened.
Yeah, see, this is why this is dangerous.
Her speech started out, "Where is my hat?" said the boy when he was on his way out the front door. She ended her speech with the little boy in my story was my brother, and Mr. and Mrs. Adams was my mother and father. Looking back, he had been on a school field trip to a farm, but they didn't have farm safety. There wasn't anything out there. He was in 4-H, but farm safety wasn't an option.
Shortly after that speech, Marilyn started Farm Safety for Just Kids out of the garage of her house. It started with making simple safety decals to remind kids of the dangers of gravity flow wagons. And now it has grown into an international organization. Kids are given the chance to learn about farm safety so that accidents like Keith's can be prevented.
Marilyn, do you feel like you've saved lives?
I do. And saving lives is what motivates me the most.
Next up on Small Town Big Deal, you'll get to meet Christy Ruth, a volunteer with Farm Safety for Just Kids, whose story you won't want to miss. So stay tuned.
It's time to man up with MASSEY. Take it from the dairy farmers who already have.
It's a great tractor, absolutely excellent fuel economy, and it's dependable.
CVT is great, you never have to shift.
I liked it because it goes real slow.
It makes you more productive.
They're the best performing tractor out there.
We're not just out to change your tractor. We're out to change the game. Go to manupwithmassey.com.
For 110 years, Morton Buildings has served the needs of the American farmer. Today, we continue to construct farm buildings while also offering custom stall barns, workshops, garages, and commercial facilities. From concept through completion, Morton Buildings handles every aspect of your project. Join generations of customers who've discovered the quality and dependability of a Morton building. For more information and to get started on your building project, call 800-447-7436 or visit our website at mortonbuildings.com.
Introducing the world's coolest dad. On the world's fastest lawnmower. Dixie Chopper, the world's fastest lawnmower.
Welcome back to Small Town Big Deal. We're still in Iowa, but I've moved down the road to meet up with Christy Ruth, a farm girl with a true passion for farm safety. Christy and her family raise cattle, so she knows all too well about farm equipment and the danger it poses. Christy's uncle lost his life due to a tractor rollover accident. His death began Christy on a journey of farm safety education through giving speeches at local FFA meetings. She had no idea tragedy would hit her family yet again.
Christy, tell me about that day that changed your life.
February 18th, 2007 was a day just like any other. We headed down to the barn because I had just bought a bunch of heifers and we wanted a place for easier calving so that we weren't outside and in the elements. Sunny, beautiful, gorgeous. Unfortunately, the ground was still frozen.
Christy, her dad, and her brothers were digging post holes for a fence, but not having much luck due to the frozen ground.
The digger started shaking back and forth, hitting the side of the barn, and in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not going to want to fix the side of the barn, so I just held it still. Dad said to let go, so didn't listen to him. He said, we're done. He shut it off for the day. I pulled my hand away and it cupped my glove on a pair of leather gloves. So how it happened is on a piece of equipment like this, if you hold up and you can see the shear bolt goes right in through this, and it was hanging out and it was farther than it should be. It was a lot longer. And then when it did it, it caught my glove, and then that bolt pulled, and it pulled my whole arm in, up and around, and it went down the whole length of the shaft. And it stretched out a lot farther than my arm could reach, about another 1.5 feet farther than my fingertips are now.
Your arm was 1.5 feet longer than it is now.
It was. It broke here and here and here and then up here again. One more turn and I would have been decapitated because it brought that top bar right to my chest, and that was the last roll around. And if it had gone any farther, the top half of me would have gone on this top side of the bar and the bottom half would have gone in the bottom.
Christy was life-flighted to Des Moines, where doctors recommended to amputate her arm at her shoulder. She was then flown to Iowa City, where surgeons would do all they could to save her arm.
We went into surgery that night, and it was a very critical point in time. My artery was severed at my elbow, which is why they wanted to take my arm off at my shoulder up in Des Moines. So they found somebody that was willing to try and repair it. Originally, they told me I would be in the hospital for 3 months. I would be in intensive care for 3 weeks, and I got out in 11 days.
Christy's recovery was remarkably fast, but as the wounds were starting to heal, there were still scars at home.
Obviously the impact on you is what it is, but I'm sure this impacted your family greatly. How was that?
For my parents, it's extremely hard. My mother held together and she stayed strong for the longest time until I was physically better, and then she broke down. My dad was hard from the beginning. Every time my dad sees me struggle, I see it in his eyes, and you can just, as a father, it weighs on him.
It's just so easy to be unsafe and be in a hurry.
Absolutely.
And then something like this happens just in the blink of an eye.
And all it takes is 1.5 seconds to not be paying attention, to not have your eye where it's supposed to be doing, to not have a weight on for a tractor to roll over. It's the blink of an eye, and everything can change.
My name is Christy, and I'm here from southern Iowa.
After the accident, Christy began volunteering for farm safety for just kids. She uses the story of her accident to warn youth all across the country about farm safety.
Today I'm going to be talking to you about life-changing seconds.
If I could just keep this from happening to one person, I would be happy. I was drilling post holes with my family. I'd just given a speech on farm safety within the next couple days before that, and I hadn't even listened to my own advice. Because this didn't just affect me, it affected my entire family. I would never wish this upon anybody else. But if I can open the eyes of as many people that will listen, maybe that nothing would ever happen on their farm. There's a lot of things that you can do. When you cut corners, it's dangerous.
Christy still has more surgeries in her future, but we are thankful she's taking this personal tragedy and leveraging it for something good.
The pain, the surgeries, I couldn't do it again. I couldn't start over, but I can sure stand up and finish what started. So take a step back and realize what could happen if you're not being safe.
You know, these stories are not your typical small town big deal stories, but they are stories that are so important to hear.
And you know, Jan, Marilyn and Christy have done so much to raise awareness for safety for farm kids that now it's your turn to help.
That's right.
Small Town Big Deal and Nationwide Agribusiness Insurance Company are partnering together to raise awareness for safety for farm kids.
That's right. What we want are your most creative and best ideas and all your tips for farm and rural safety for kids. Then what's going to happen is we're going to make the top 100 list. So we need you to go to smalltownbigdeal.com, click on the Nationwide Agribusiness link, and submit your idea.
And that's not all. Everybody who submits an idea gets a free Small Town Big Deal hat. We like free.
We like free.
Compliments of Nationwide Agribusiness Insurance Company.
That's right. Now everybody?
Everybody.
All right. And then Farm Safety for Just Kids will take all of those ideas and they are going to be the ones to pick the top 100. We're rooting for you.
So send in your ideas today.
It's time to man up with Massey. Take it from the farmers who already have.
When we were John Deere, that was in our blood. We are now colorblind. We are looking for value.
Simply just gets the job done. I have to say, Massey opened my eyes. This isn't your daddy's Massey Ferguson.
We're not just out to change your tractor. We're out to change the game. Go to manupwithmassey.com.
Hi, I'm Rodney Miller, host of Small Town Big Deal. I recently got wind of a way to make my pond picture perfect, and it's all thanks to my good friend John Red at Outdoor Water Solutions.
Thanks, Rodney. At Outdoor Water Solutions, we manufacture a wide range of pond products, including the windmill aeration system that you see behind me. So if your pond has moss on the top or black muck or organic matter on the bottom, then you need to look at our products.
And John, how can our viewers find out about you?
You can go to our website, which is outdoorwatersolutions.com.
We know who made that hitch. We know who cut the steel, who milled the ball, and who welded the seams. We know who tested, measured, and checked. We even know who thought the whole thing up. We're B&W, and we know your hitch. Because we don't make them halfway around the world. We make them all right here. B&W. Trusted.
This is Springdale, Arkansas. With around 60,000 residents, it has the charm and bustle of any other small city. And it's here that we got wind of a guy who's made a name for himself by putting a new spin on an old technology.
I grew up on a farm and we had windmills on the farm. It just reminds me of my roots, you know, which is rural agriculture, rural America. And you know, the fact that my ancestors and pioneers settled the ground and they all had windmills and used windmills, and it was just an important part of their life.
And it's that nostalgic passion for windmills that got John Red into the business of making and selling them. Today, windmills are often seen as icons of rural America. But in their day, they stood as giant engines, some standing 100 feet tall, and they played a tremendous part in improving the quality of life.
They were used, you know, when the settlers settled the United States and the West, primarily to pump water for the crops and for the livestock. So they've been around a long time, and they're, you know, an important part of American history.
By the mid-1930s, with the advent of electricity to rural areas, the need for windmills to pump water wound down. But things have been gearing up at Outdoor Water Solutions. That's John's company. You won't see any windmills here, just windmill parts that are assembled on site. And while they make windmills that can pump water, they also have developed windmills that can clean water. It's called aeration.
Aeration is basically adding oxygen to a body of water. So we're basically adding compressed air to the bottom, which allows the water to circulate. And we take that oxygen-rich water from the surface down to the bottom, getting rid of a lot of the muck, and then also getting rid of a lot of the algae on top.
It works on bodies of water like small lakes or ponds, and all it takes is 3 miles an hour of wind to get the system running. Outdoor Water Solutions assembles the parts and tests them at their plant in Springdale. And they can pack the pieces of an entire 24-foot windmill in this relatively small box. It's really amazing when you think about it. I was so impressed with what I saw at the factory that I decided to get an aeration system for my own pond. And Jann's supposed to be here to help me put it up. It wasn't hard to put together at all. I quickly set up the tower. Now I've got to place the head on top of it. Then I'll secure the whole structure to 4 concrete piers I had poured a few days ago. Hey John.
Hey Rodney.
Great to see you, man. John came all the way from Arkansas to my home in South Georgia to give Jann and I a hand with the finishing touches. Now, I'm not sure quite where Jann is yet, but we'll go ahead and start without her.
You know, Rodney, we don't just come out and help anybody do this.
With some help from my son Reed and John's wife Tanya, we easily slide the head to the tower.
Okay.
And then, the moment of truth.
Let's see what you catch. All right.
Once erected, we adjust the brackets on the concrete to hold it in place. Kind of looks like an oil derrick.
Rodney, we can split it right here, or we can come down and split it down here.
John is talking about that black tubing. Once the windmill turns, air will be forced through the tubing and released through air stones we're about to place at the bottom of the pond.
So I think we're going to go out there and just put an air stone. Yeah, just a little bit that way. There you go.
Oh, okay.
So we'll put one diffuser out there, and then we'll probably put the second one out here and try to catch kind of the 2 of the deeper areas and where we can get enough circulation. So if we can get the water circulating, we can take the oxygen-rich water on the top, bring it to the bottom, and that just makes the pond a whole lot healthier.
Even without Jann, we still voyage to the middle of my pond to place the air stones on the bottom.
Need a motor on this thing.
Jann seems to miss all the work. I don't know where she's at. I guess she's sunbathing somewhere. She is supposed to be here to paddle.
Easy. There we go.
A plastic duck will float above the air stones so I'll know where they are. A little later, the windmill encounters its first breeze and the bubbles start flowing. It amazes me that a little wind power can keep my pond clean.
A lot of people have cattle and horses, and they use and rely on those ponds for water for their livestock. If you can get air in there and aerate them, we can make that water quality a whole lot better.
I think since we've got the aeration system in now, I think we should have a little fun. Maybe a little fishing tournament, you know?
That would be good. That would be good.
A little competition. Let's see who can catch the biggest fish.
There you go.
Let's go. Now this is the perfect ending to a really nice day, but I don't know where Jann is. Hey, did I ever tell you about the 24-inch bass in here?
I don't know about a 24-inch bass, but we got a 24-foot windmill.
Well, that's true, but my son did catch a 24-inch bass and he put it back in, so maybe the best fisherman to catch it.
Could be, could be.
And I've got something.
What do you got?
And it's big.
What is that?
Well, I don't think it's a 24-inch bass. I believe it's my missing boot.
I don't think that's a fish, Rodney.
I guess this means John wins the fishing tournament. If you want more information on John's company, check out OutdoorWaterSolutions.com. You know, Jann, I really enjoyed building the windmill, but I noticed you missed out on all the work.
You know, I think you didn't invite me because you were afraid that I was going to outfish you all.
I don't think that was it. But you know, the best part of this episode for me was meeting Christy and how she turned a farm accident into such a positive thing.
She was amazing. And of course, for me, it was meeting Marilyn, who really is a hero. She took the tragedy of her own son's death and she turned it into an organization that is saving countless lives.
You know, and don't forget to send us your top 100 farm safety tips.
That's right. Go to our website, smalltownbigdeal.com, and send them in. Everybody who sends in a tip gets a hat, and you might make the top 100 list.
Can I get a hat too?
Don't you already have a hat?
Maybe one or two, but don't forget to join us next week when once again we celebrate the great stories from across America.
See you then.
Well, you know, there's only like 8 or 10 bolts on this thing. Times 1,000. Are you guys lifting?
Oh!
I kind of got out of oxygen when we were putting that tower up. And where's Jann when we're getting all this work done?